Today we'll be focusing on the oil and gas sector. We'll be looking at the funding needs and the gaps in that sector, as oil marketers are asking the federal government to establish an energy bank and fund it to the tune of $15 billion. What will be the impact of these on the oil and gas sector? We'll also do a review of the Nigeria equity market to look at what played out last week. We'll look at the top gainers and the top losers. We're starting looking at the latest development in the oil and gas industry, as oil marketers are demanding that the federal government should establish Energy Bank of Nigeria, EBN, and fund it to the tune of $15 billion. According to these oil marketers, this will be like a game changer in that industry. But what will be the impact of this funding, and how should it be maximized towards the growth and development in the oil and gas sector? To shed more light on this and also give us a picture of what is going on in oil and gas sector, we are being joined by Barbs Pawuru, who is a petroleum engineer and also the president of the Host Communities Network of Nigeria. Barbs, glad you have joined us on Market Insight for today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Great. I love your resume, and I'm happy you're the right man to talk to at this period. So let's start by you giving us a picture of the energy needs and the funding gaps in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria, as oil marketers are demanding that the federal government should establish Energy Bank of Nigeria, and talking about the fund to the tune of $15 billion. But as a player in that sector, give us a picture of the funding gap in that sector.
Thank you so much. It will be a very great idea to have an energy bank. But before going to the issue of energy bank, let us get a brief overview of the petroleum industry. The petroleum industry is segmented into the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream sectors. The upstream has to do with prospecting for oil, drilling, and production, then taking what have been produced to the flow station and eventually, perhaps, to the storage tank. The midstream has to do with transportation of the crude to the storage tank and finally to the refineries for refining. Then the downstream has to do with the refining of the crude into the various components of kerosene, petrol, diesel. So that is the downstream. The downstream involves also marketing, retail outlets. It involves marketing. You see, there have been some problems, hiccups in all of these segments of the petroleum industry. But however, our emphasis today will be on the downstream, which has to do with refining of the crude oil into products and eventual marketing outlets. Now, there have been hiccups, and the hiccups has to do with, first, regulatory framework, regulatory and governance framework. We thank God for the PIA of 2021, which had come to address that hiccup, where private sector players can now go into that sector. But there are also still some hiccups, and the hiccup has to do with funding of the downstream sector. Before now, the downstream sector had only the public entities, like government entity, playing there as the sole player in that sector. But the PIA had come to open the space for the private sector to also participate, and this is where you have the marketers. The marketers, the independent marketers, before now had been importing the finished product from other countries and distributed them. When we say about the marketers, we talk about the retail outlets, like the owners of the filling stations. They are actually the marketers. But we have the oil, the crude oil here in Nigeria, which is not refined here in Nigeria, but taken offshore. And when this crude oil is taken offshore for refining and you bring it back, it gives a very high cost. They do this because the downstream sector has not gotten so much funding from our banks. There have been banking hiccups. Our banks have given loans to the downstream sector of operators, but the loans are of very high interest. the interest is so high. And because the interest is so high, the players in the downstream sector cannot access these loans. And this is why they call for the energy bank, which I also support. Not only that the interest rate is high, but you see, the petroleum industry is capital intensive and takes a lot of long time to set up the infrastructures, whether upstream, midstream, downstream. So before you take, if you have a loan and you are taking, and the period of repayment of the loan is a short term, then it means that these people cannot actually play their role. So there has to be a long-term loan, The interest rate offered by the commercial banks to these independent marketeers is so high. The independent marketeers cannot afford it. Not only that, the loan repayment period is also very short. They need to sell and get their interest repaid. They need to get profit and enough profit to repay the loan. But if the loan repayment period is so short, these marketeers cannot pay back these loans. And this is why they are clamoring for an energy bank that will bridge the gap between the high interest rates and the short-term loan repayment time. See, so the energy bank will come in with the innovation of low interest rates, not only low interest rate, but the loan repayment period will be longer. And so by so doing, these independent marketeers will have enough time to repay the loan and at a very low rate. Because if the interest rate is so high, it will eat deep into their profit. And they're in business to make profit. And this is one of the reasons why these independent marketeers are clamoring for the energy bank, which will afford them enable them access the funds they want at a very low rate and a long repayment period.
All right, the oil marketers seem to be very optimistic about this energy bank of Nigeria. But here are the realities. If you look at the interest, the benchmark for the interest rate is still the same in Nigeria. Now, how more of game changing will it be if this bank is established? How optimistic are you that this will help in solving these fund gaps in the oil and gas sector? And how will it play out if this bank is being established, knowing fully well that the same indices play out for other investors? So how realistic will it be that oil and gas marketers will have access to funds or loans at a lower rate? How realistic it is?
Okay, let us take a look. Let us take a look at the Bank of Industry, for example. The Bank of Industry, for example, has its interest rate very low because it understands how the industry operates. But these other commercial banks do not understand how the industry operates. Hello?
Clearly, please go ahead.
The other commercial banks do not understand how the petroleum industry or the industry as a whole operates. But for the Bank of Industry, they understand and know the problems the independent marketers are passing through. So they give their loans at a very, very low rate. Check out from the Bank of Industry. See, they want a bank like that of Bank of Industry that can give them at a very low rate. Not only low rate, but the repayment period should be long. So if this energy bank comes in, I tell you, it will enhance their access to funds easily. It will enhance that. It will enable many players, private players, to come into the industry. And so I think we are optimistic about it, that it will come and bridge in the gap. Very, 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 very great help to bring in into the industry.
All right, let's talk about the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act, which you also talked about a lack of regulatory framework. Now, this act was amended in order to provide the right framework for the oil and gas sector, especially the downstream sector. Are you saying we haven't felt the impact of this act, especially addressing the funding gap in the oil and gas sector?
Yes, you are very correct. The act itself has not been implemented. I have not seen anyone, whether it is NNPCL or whosoever that's in charge of implementing the act as it is in the act. But however, it is a new act coming in. It takes time for those in charge of implementing it to do so. So we'll give them time. That's why it has not had the needed impact. Even those of us in the host communities that have been clamoring for, though we don't, that act is not from us, the ones in the host community, not from us, it's for government and it's an executive act. But still, I've read this is better than no, we accept it. But we see that has not impacted on us as the way we wanted it, not only in the oil and gas industry, but also the host communities. And we know that with time, they will begin to execute the provisions of the act. So the PIA not being having impactful having impact on the petroleum industry is because of the slow implementation rate.
All right. Information available to us says that this association or these oil marketers are also partnering with foreign oil refiners in Asia to see what they can do and build refineries in Nigeria. My question, I'm wondering why, while a foreign oil refiner, since we have the refinery in Port Harcourt, we have one in Warri, we have even Dangote refinery who is coming on board, and in June we will have food production. While emphasis on foreign oil refiners.
Great. You understand that the refineries you mentioned, the one in Port Harcourt, the two in Port Harcourt, the one in Warri, and even in Kaduna, are government entities. You see, you understand that government has no business in going to business. The role of government will have been to provide the enabling environment for the private sector to go in and do business. The business as a whole is for private sector, not for government. And so they're going to get other partners from foreign countries. For me, it's not wrong. One, because the refineries we have here in Nigeria, most of them are comatose. They are comatose. The one in Warri has been there, lying there for a long time. The one in the two in Port Harcourt have been lying down, except recently. One of them have been revamped and have been operationalized. Then the one in Kaduna has not been revamped. You see, but if we have active refineries elsewhere in other parts of the world, and these independent marketeers want to partner with them, because the independent marketeers are actually playing the role of marketers. They're not refiners. They don't operate refineries. They only have retail outlets. But because they want the product easily available for them to market, that is why I think they want to partner with foreign refineries to partner and to get the product available. It's a great idea. If the product is easily available, they will have something to market and get their profit. But for the refineries we have here, okay, the Dangote one that I just started, they could partner. It's a private entity. But the ones in Warri, in Port Harcourt, and in Kaduna you mentioned are government entities, government owned. Anything government owned in Nigeria as a way of again, government cannot be regulating. For me, I don't even like the idea of government coming to the business, because government is supposed to be a regulator. You cannot be regulating at the same time be an operator. It doesn't work. Government should only give the regulatory framework for those that know how to do the business to go into the business as the private sector. So they partner with foreign refineries to come and refine here in Nigeria, the product here in Nigeria. For me, it's a great idea. It's a welcome idea. It's a welcome idea for Dangote. I just started. If he needs partners from amongst those independent marketeers, of course, they can go to him. I encourage that. But for them to go to a government entity like the refinery in Port Harcourt, refinery in Warri, the refinery in Kaduna, for me, I won't encourage that, because it is as clear as though government is the operator and is also the regulator, which shouldn't be, can't work.
All right. Now, let's look at this argument on the part of some stakeholders that these refineries, the local refineries here, the one in Kaduna, in Warri, Port Harcourt, should be privatized. Here, on the other hand, you have Labour laying this argument on the table that the interest of workers who are working with these refineries have to be put into consideration. And also the argument that these are national assets that shouldn't be privatized. What's your take on this argument as regards these refineries, who you said, according to you, are in comatose?
Yes, thank you. That argument from the Labour or whoever that is making that argument, for me, is baseless. Other private entities in this country have been privatized. For example, go to electricity. Many of these the distributing companies were formerly owned by government. NEPA, for example, it has been privatized and it's working. There were workers there. These workers, there must be an agreement. There should be an agreement between the private entities that will take over and the government to absorb these workers, because they know the operations, the nitty-gritty of the operations of these companies. They understand it. They will find a way to absorb them. They will not just lay them all off. And again, I told you, government has no business in business. Government only provides the enabling environment. So anything government in this country doesn't work, because government is supposed to be a regulator, to regulate the power sector, to regulate the energy sector, and not be the owner of the business in the energy and the power sector. So it is a very good thing, welcome idea to privatize the refineries that government have operated for so long time and have been comatose for a long time. And again, you see our Nigeria system is very corrupt. Anything owned by government is not owned by anybody. People go in there, government put in so much money, so much funds into this business. At the end of the day, they still run the businesses aground. See, corruption is endemic in Nigerian system. Corruption has a way of playing. So if these refineries are privatized, the private owners who are there to make profit will make sure they do the business the way the businessmen should do business. So I encourage whosoever that is clamoring for this refineries to be privatized, to privatize them. Yeah, it's a good thing. I joined forces with them to privatize all these comatose refineries that have been run aground by government officials due to corruption.
Now, let's talk about access to loan, which, generally, it's usually a challenge in Nigeria because of the bureaucracy and the bottleneck involved. Now, the oil marketers are asking the federal government to fund the Energy Bank of Nigeria with a sum of $15 billion. Now, if this becomes a reality, are you bothered about access to these loans? What will be your recommendation as regards the framework and the requirement in accessing these loans?
Yeah, thank you so much. I've already told you that anything run by government is run by no one in Nigeria because of our Nigerian corruption system. You see, if this energy bank is to be run by government, there's a danger also of corruption going in. That 15 billion would have been okay. It could be less, it could be higher. I'm not even interested in the amount. But how can these same government people that are run all other government entities aground not able to run this same energy bank aground? That is my fear, due to corruption. Yes, the 15 billion is okay, can be less than, because this oil marketer wants to access fund at a lower interest, like I said initially, and at a long repayment period. But the operation of this bank should be left in the hands of the private sector. Also, government could let it be a public-private partnership business, not just for government to run it and bring in the funds, 15 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion. That would be good, but the government employees, the government agent, the government personnel that will run it, I have the fear that they also run it around if it is left alone, for them alone to operate. So there should be a public-private affair, partnership to run the energy bank.
All right. Now, let's look at what is playing out in the sector generally now. There's this talk about modular refineries, which will also help ensure the local production. Why do you think government has been, taking a slow approach to? Of course, few licenses have been granted, but why do you think government is taking a slow approach to commercializing it, which some perceive will also be a game changer in the oil and gas sector?
Quite agreed. The modular refineries would have been very, very great game changer. Government is slow, I told you. That sector, the downstream sector, have been purely being operated by government. Even when the PIA has come in to open the field, the space for private investors to invest, government is still reluctant. You see, they have devolved power legislatively. Powers have been devolved. Powers have been taken and given, and the space has been opened. But government is still reluctant because of the benefits certain individuals have been getting from not allowing the private sector participate. And because of those things, they will not want to open the space completely. They will not want to open the space. It's not government policy to not open the space. They want to open the space. But the people that are benefiting behind and are still running government would not want to open the space for private entities to come in. And by the time the private entities come in, whatever they've been benefiting as government entity would go away from them. And this is why they are reluctant. The operators are reluctant. Howbeit, I know with time, the modular refineries will come upstream and they will help in producing or bringing more of the products available, making it available for the economy, to improve the economy.
All right, for investors who would like to invest in the downstream sector in Nigeria, this is market insight. I would love you to give an insight into the opportunities, into the areas where you think should be of interest to investors who hope to invest in the downstream sector in Nigeria.
Yeah. You see, we have talked about the retail outlets, which is already operating. These are very good areas. The only areas there have been restriction is in the refining of the product, which are the refineries, where only government entities have been there. See, I will also like Dangote has done now, is very, very encouraging. If other investors could take a cue from Dangote, assess the funds, which is difficult now for them to assess the funds and come into that part of the downstream sector, I tell you, they will make huge profit. Though it takes a long time for them to recoup their money to make their profit, but when you set up the energy infrastructure in that field, the refinery in that, and you're able to produce, because the crude oil, the raw material, the crude oil is readily available. If you're able to produce your refined product, and because we have a very big market in Nigeria, and you will sell at a very, very high profit. And the profit, because of the profit margin involved, I encourage private investors to go into the area of refining, and even modular refineries, not just modular refineries, but the refineries like that of Dangote and even bigger ones than that of Dangote.
Now, let's talk about production. It's been challenging for Nigeria to meet its OPEC quota for months now. It's been hovering between 1.2 million barrels per day and 1.3 million barrels per day. What do you think is largely responsible for these as a player in that industry?
Thank you so much. And brother, let me tell you the truth. When we say there is security in the oil industry, there's no security. Much of the oil produced is still being stolen. There is still oil theft going on in the high sea. The oil companies cannot account for the volume of oil they produce. And that is one of the problems. There's a connivance between operators in the oil industry and other oil thieves from offshore to steal Nigerian oil. If these oil thieves are not there, I tell you, Nigeria will meet its oil quota. Do you know that Nigeria does not know how much of oil Nigeria produces? We don't know. NNPC does not know. From the well air where it is produced, there's oil theft. Up to the flow station, there's oil theft. Up to the transportation system, to the storage tanks, there's oil theft. Whether transportation by land, transportation by sea, barges, there's oil theft. Up to the point it's taken to the refinery, there's oil theft. So what is largely responsible for Nigeria not being able to meet its quota is because of the presence and increase of oil theft. I must tell you, oil theft is still going on. Not the local oil theft, not the local people that are stealing it, but from international level. There are barges, there are tugboats, there are a lot of transport coming from all over the world to steal our oil, tankers in the high sea, stealing them, and Nigeria cannot account for that oil. More than half of Nigerian oil production is stolen. That is the truth. And the oil companies too are not helping matters. They connive. They know, the operators, the workers in the oil company know, they connive with these foreign thieves to steal the oil. So long as there is corruption and oil theft in Nigeria, it will be difficult for Nigeria to meet the genuine quota allotted to it. This issue needs to be addressed. Yeah, they told us they are putting some local people as security on the river. Yes, these people, how are we sure these people are also not conniving? This security, the security forces in Nigeria are also conniving. Go to the Niger Delta. Any security man that is posted to the Niger Delta becomes a billionaire overnight. Even the local security forces, people, personnel that are there, they are all billionaires. They are making money. So much of over 50% of Nigerian oil is stolen. Still, the stealing is still going on. People in high positions, people in government, the military, mention them, all of them, security agencies, they are all stealing from this Nigerian oil production. So it will be difficult for Nigeria, since Nigeria does not know how much of the oil it produces, it will be difficult for Nigeria to meet its oil quota. People are carrying bags to the bank.
Sorry to butt in, but I want that conversation to be solution driven, because the essence of having this conversation is to provide insight into the solution. So how do we address these issues that you raised, the issue of oil theft?
I keep telling government,
I hope you can hear me.
I keep telling government, not until the host communities where the oil is produced are involved actively. That's the organization we represent. I am the president of the Host Communist Network of Nigeria. The host communities are involved. We see them daily. Not until we are actively involved, this oil theft cannot be addressed, and Nigeria cannot meet its oil quota maximally. The host communities that are there should be involved in securing these facilities. They should be involved actively. Not only that, the Nigerian government should also address one issue that have been making people to do this stealing, and that is the environmental component. The environment in the Niger Delta is destroyed. Fishing and farming is no more there. The people have no option than to go and steal, break the pipelines, and take whatever they want to take. The federal government should also address the environmental component, the social component of the degradation they have done in the Niger Delta. Address all of these issues wholly, completely. And when these issues are addressed, Nigeria will be able to meet, at least if not completely meeting, will meet a good percentage of his quota. But not only because they will be others, they will already be stealing the oil. They will steal, and we see it daily. I live in the host community. I live in my community, and we see them. So we should be involve the host communities network that will represent. Involve us, and we're able to do the business for the federal government.
All right, Barbs, let's wrap up with this. I wish we'll have more time to talk about this, but let's just wrap up this conversation with this by looking at this call for the Energy Bank of Nigeria to be established. If this becomes the order of the day, what are your expectations? If this becomes reality, as regards the control mechanism that should be put in place to ensure that this bank achieves the purpose intended? In a few minutes, please.
Yeah, the purpose of this bank is to open up the economic space. By the time there are more private actors in that space, we will have the products readily available, and other industrial players will come in, and easily other energy users will come in, and thereby increasing and expanding Nigeria's GDP. Nigeria's GDP will grow astronomically when this bank comes to provide the funds for these private sectors to do their job. And these are some of the benefits we are going to have. Though we are going to have some hiccups, we know, because the private sector need to, when they get the loan, they need to sell to the markets, get profit, and pay. If they don't get the profit on time, to repay this loan will also be a problem. We know those problems will all arise. However, there are more benefits. There are more benefits than problems that going to arise from this energy bank. So because of the benefits, I support the idea.
I love your submission. I think on that note, we just have to wrap up this conversation. Thank you so much for your time and your thought on this issue of addressing the funding gap in the oil and gas sector. No doubt you're the right man for this conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. God bless you.